On the docket tonight, an absolutely tragic case out of Colorado involving a young woman who finds out she's pregnant and she's excited and she wants to share the news with her boyfriend. She gets in the car, drives hours to go see him, and she's never seen or heard from again. And now that boyfriend has been charged with her murder. Let's bring in our guest in Denver, Colorado tonight. Trial attorney Kelly Hyman joins us back on the show. Great to see you, Kelly.
Great to see you. Thank you.
This case, there's no body, right? So it seems the defense won't even concede that Kelsey Schelling has passed away, has died, that someone killed her, and not even going to concede that. How much of a hurdle do you think it is based upon some of the evidence that prosecutors have here?
Well, first and foremost, my heart and prayer goes out to her family. I mean, it's so tragic not to know what happened to your daughter. And I think it's hard. I mean, the prosecution has to prove their case. They have the burden of proof. I mean, there is no body, and it seems, based on the evidence so far that, there's a lot of circumstantial evidence. It's going to be very, very difficult case, but ultimately the jury will make a determination based on the evidence and come back. And hopefully the family can get some kind of justice in this horrific incident.
Yeah, and you're talking about years that she has been waiting for justice. And I think what she wants more than anything is to find her daughter and find that grandchild that never had a chance, right? I look at the tragedy of this, but you look at the circumstances. You go back to February 4th. This is when it's confirmed to her, yes, you are pregnant. She has that phone conversation. She goes down to see him. And that's the part, to me, that is, when you talk about circumstantial evidence, it seems so obvious, right? She goes down there and then she's never heard from him again. I mean, what happened to her? I mean, they've got some of these surveillance videos out there. He changed his story a little bit. So I don't know if he gets any sort of a benefit of a doubt here once this jury hears what the story is.
That's true. You bring up a really good point. But, according to his attorney, that, that he believes that the evidence is not there and makes allegations that the father was somehow involved potentially. And that's got to be really hard for a family. They want justice. They want to know what happened to their daughter, and they still, don't know, and they don't have these answers. My heart and prayer, I mean, to lose one of your children, I can only imagine what that's like. It's a very difficult situation.
And you look at what happened here. Now, Dante Lucas is locked up for something else right now. So is his mother. And there are text messages back and forth between mother and son that, they're kind of speaking the way the mob does when they communicate with one another. They don't exactly say what they did, but you can kind of read between the lines a little bit. How compelling do you think that could potentially be here?
I think that could be potentially compelling. I mean, ultimately, the jury is going to make a determination on the evidence. And as I stated before, the prosecution was going to have to prove their, case. But, the jury will always wonder, why would someone want to do this? Why would they want to hurt someone or do something like that? And so if there's a lot of, circumstantial evidence, it may tip the scale. And, ultimately, the jury might come back with a guilty verdict.
How about this little fact that Dante Lucas not so concerned about his missing girlfriend who's carrying his child? Doesn't really speak with anyone, doesn't search, doesn't really cooperate, doesn't talk to Kelsey's family about any of it for years and years and years. Really says nothing. Like, whatever. Yeah, she's carrying my baby. She was my girlfriend for a bunch of years. No, I don't care. She's missing. Too bad. And he's the last one to see her. I mean, I think people, and you talk about the jurors will read people as to who they are and in what their fabric is. And the way you react to situations and tragedy, I think, can be very telling. I mean, if this young woman is carrying your child, do you have a heart? Why are you doing nothing?
You bring up a really good point, but always have to remember that everyone handles grief differently. But absolutely, I mean, you find out that your girlfriend's pregnant, you're, having your child. I mean, that's a really good point that you bring up, that someone would be, very, very upset and very concerned, and want to find out what happened to the girlfriend, and also, concern about, the baby. And that's very compelling, and I think the jury is very smart, and they listen to the evidence and make an ultimate determination on things. But Vinny, you bring a good point. As always, you always bring up good points.
Well, how about this? There's an indication that they may point the finger, like you said, at her father. How do you put that all together? I mean, she is in Denver, finds out she's pregnant, then she drives 2 hours to Pueblo, Colorado. He doesn't live in Pueblo, Colorado. We've got surveillance video of the car in the parking lot. We kind of see him walking through that surveillance video. But, I mean, what type of evidence do they need, or do you think they just throw it out there because they're going to try to paint the picture that somehow they didn't have a great relationship?
Right, that's an interesting point. As I said before, the prosecution has to prove their case, so they have to prove every single element of the case. And so, if the defendant wants to show doubt and show that someone else was involved in some kind of other evidence, and show that the person could possibly do it, then the jury might look at that and say, that the prosecution hasn't proven their case, and there's someone else that could potentially, be charged with the crime. But that's very difficult, and it'll be also interesting to see who testifies. Is the defendant? Are they going to call the father? Is he going to testify? We're just going to have to wait and see how this ultimately plays out. Interesting case.
Yeah, and that ends up being close to the Casey Anthony defense. You find somebody who's not involved, and then you try to make it look like they are involved. I've seen that done actually successfully before. So anything can happen at trial. Kelly Hyman, great to see you. Thanks so much.
Good to see you. Be well.